Why are there tears coming out of our eyes when we are crying? Where are they from, and are they instantaneously compounded or stored long?
Jesus Christ, isn't this what Google's for? Quora is like oatmeal. You might accidentally come across it while searching for how do vending machines work, and I guess it does a sufficient job of filling your hunger, especially if you're in a rush and don't feel like traditional things like Yahoo Answers or cereal. I don't really know what the point of that analogy was, but you can tell that Quora is just It works, but I feel like it came out way too late to be more popular than Yahoo Answers or Wikipedia. Don't get me wrong, it's a functional website with a decent pre-2017 YouTube-esque design, which I find to be efficient, but it doesn't do anything revolutionary to stand out. Quora is the definition of tiny chat syndrome, where the thing works, but it just didn't come out soon enough to actually overtake its competitor, and has been overshadowed by things that do what it does but better. Oh shit, I haven't even explained what Quora is. Quora is a website that hosts questions and allows you to either answer previously asked questions, view the answers to them, yeah no shit, or ask your own questions. Essentially Yahoo Answers, Reddit, and Google, but not as noteworthy as either of them. You can ask things like, what is the most overpowered jutsu in Naruto, and interesting enough, you can do it anonymously. Considering that almost every website requires you to have an account to post things, asking things anonymously is quite a novel idea. But I don't know why you'd be posting your real name on the internet regardless, unless you're someone who's YouTube famous. However, when you make accounts for some bizarre reason, you have to actually use your full name and you can't use any wacky and fun usernames. Obviously there's faking a real name, but still, it's not very open. I do suppose this is a good way to combat trolling. Really, who's going on to Quora for trolling? That's what 4chan is for. I understand that the people behind Quora wanted a community of actually decent people, but isn't this why you create moderators? There's going to be bad people on the internet, but exposing everyone isn't exactly the best solution. But what about the questions, you may be asking? Well, they range from pretty fucked up to Rafflecopter. Seeing as Quora established itself as a big boy where only big boys can play, it's more reputable than the ill-fated Yahoo Answers, which while failing as a Q&A site was still a pretty good source of entertainment. But unfortunately, I don't think Quora is that fun in that regard because of how deep and intellectual and other pretentious shit it has to be. Sorry, I dropped my bag of hypocrisy. How does this affect the quality of the questions in the fanbase? It's I do find that a lot of questions tend to be engaging, and more often than not I try to contribute to the conversation with whatever obscure information I have about Naruto, but it's nothing revolutionary, which is why I avoided talking about it for the past half paragraph. I often found myself wondering, more often than not, did this person accidentally miss the search bar? Because a lot of these questions, while admittedly somewhat interesting to read up on, very well could have been easily answered with a Google search. I'm not trying to bash the users, but it's just, some of this shit should be just kept private. I'm not going to expose any direct conversations because everything is linked to everyone's real name and I don't want to expose anyone for no real reason. But you can look this shit up. I'm not victim blaming, but if you're going through some of these issues, then you probably shouldn't be telling the entire internet about this, especially when your real name is linked to it. I understand that some people aren't really comfortable going to their parents, or they don't have anyone they trust at the moment, and as a result, they seek solace in asking the internet, but I don't know. There's no issue with that, and I'm not going to blame you for not seeing someone who's like a therapist, but honestly I just feel like seeing a professional would be a lot more efficient. I haven't gone through the things that you can probably assume I'm talking about, like literally all the possible things, if I'm being too vague that you could fill in I probably have no experience with. But I don't know, maybe a therapist doesn't work for you. And I do think that most people who respond to these kind of posts have likely gone through this themselves, so it's really a double-edged sword. I have no place to talk about this topic, so don't take my word for it. Alright, mood switch, I'm gonna discuss the faults of Q&A sites. I feel like the entire site depends on two things, really. The knowledge of the answerers and the quality of the questions by the questioners. If the users are a bunch of fucking idiots, like people who unironically use Yahoo Answers, then well, the content is going to be dumb and stupid. But if the site is used by competent people, everything is going to behave competently. Valid criticism will actually be given for when the site fucks up, allowing the site to advance, widen its audience, and become more efficient overall. But if the site is run by a bunch of bumbling idiots for a bunch of bumbling idiots, then the actual issues are going to be ignored. Shitposting prevails and the site becomes outdated and no one is really smart or competent enough to inform anyone about this. sound familiar, then the site either fades into obscurity or becomes a laughingstock because it still looks, works, and has a user base acting like they're stuck in the early 2000s. And at that point, the site has one of two options: accept its infamy and just roll with it, winking and nodding for the rest of its waning lifespan, or try to be hip and cool and ultimately failing. It's really sad, and I don't want to see this happen to Quora, because it's fairly popular, far from the likes of Reddit, but there's still a lot of potential I see in the site. The fan base, while questionable, is mostly consisting of normal people. The site layout itself is fine, the site isn't broken, but at the same time it doesn't have much of an identity. It doesn't innovate, it just blends in with all the rest, and while it isn't bad, it also means sooner or later Quora will just fade away, and that makes me sad. But I guess that's just what happens when you're the middle child.